The Absolute Law of Karma, book written by Pandit Sri Ram Sharma Acharya, audio 2. Let us take an example. In a remote, underdeveloped tribal area, one may barter a kilogram of food grains for sugar. But in a developed country, one has to pay in hard currency. In a material world, people do earn fame and name by making large contribution to charity, helping in popular welfare activities, joining religious or charitable institutions, delivering or listening a sermon, and participating in pilgrimage. But the domain of Chitragupta does not accept this currency. The ledger of this domain record only debits and credits of motives and emotions involved in the performance of deeds and convert these into virtues or sins accordingly. Upon being exhorted by his divine teacher Krishna, Arjuna got millions killed in the war of Mahabharata. This great confrontation, during which the entire battlefield became littered with corpses, took place between Arjun agreed to part of in the war. In this way, Arjun could have been considered as a great sinner, but Chitragupta gave credit to his motives for waging the Mahabharata war. Arjun's intentions were pious. He had fought only to re-establish the moral order, the dharma. Chitragupta's ledger did not take into account the slain bodies of the dead soldiers. Physical objects have no relevance in this invisible realm. Chitragupta simply ignored the number of toys of flesh and the bones destroyed during the war. Does a king bother about the number of toys broken or a number of grains spilled? In this world, billionaires are held a high regard, but in realm of Chitragupta, they are paupers and non-entities. On the other hand, a poor man of this world, if he is kind-hearted, could be counted in the realm of Chitragupta amongst the king of kings. Whatever a man does, only his motives, good or bad, are recorded in the corresponding count of Chitragupta. A public executioner who, in the course of duty, hangs a person condemned to death without any malice could be considered a virtuous person by Chitragupta, whereas a priest who meticulously follow the ritual but in secretly engaged in a corrupt practices will be labeled as a sinner. In the realm of God of divine law, Dharmaraj, the decoration of the exterior world have no values. There only the interior worth is evaluated. It hardly matters whether externally an action of a person appears good or bad. Determining factor is the interior or the emotional input. The roots of vice and the virtues unquestionably lie in the motives and intensity of emotions and not in the external deeds. In a foregoing paragraphs, we have discussed how a deity, Chitragupta, lived intimately associated with our inner lives, pranas, impartially records our good and bad deeds on the submicroscopic elements of our inner conscious, and then this subtle recording is popularly known as the lines of fate. We have also understood that the process of divine justice does not regard an act as sinful or virtuous by the external appearance of the activity, but on the basis of the quality of the motive of the doer. The intensity of motive is directly proportional to the gravity and the greatness of sin and the virtues, respectively. Take the case of two individuals nursing a sick person. Apparently, both are engaged in the same service, but whereas one is doing it indifferently, the other serves with the tenderness, sympathy, large heartedness, and love. Here, in spite of apparently identical service, the measure of virtue will depend on the quality of emotional involvement and love. Similarly, among his two thieves, one of which is compelled to steal because of the starvation and other steals for acquiring drugs, the sin will be undoubtedly be considered greater in the latter case. In divine jurisprudence, there is a significant clause for treating each individual independently according to the state of purity of the soul. The law of spirituality holds that each soul is perpetually in the process of progressive evaluation, purification through the course of successive cycles of birth and death. That is, at each successive stage, the soul acquires greater purity and is given a body in the species of higher consciousness. The birth as a human being is believed to be the highest phase of conscious evaluation on earth before liberation from the cycle of birth and death. The reward and punishment of heaven and hell depend on the state of consciousness, wisdom of the being. If accused of bribery, a peon, a clerk, or a juror will receive three different types of punishment. The peon will be acquitted after the serious reprimand. The clerk will be temporarily suspended from the service, but having been entrusted with a great responsibility, the juror cannot escape dismissal. Take one more example. A primitive tribeman hunts and kills animals for his daily meal. On the other hand, a priest preaching virtues of non-violence secretly consumes non-vegetarian food. In divine jurisprudence, the priest will add greater sin to his account than the tribesman. Here the state of awareness and the morality is being considered for evaluation of the merit and demerit of the deed. As the soul becomes more evolved with acquisition of a greater wisdom and morality, the inner conscious become more and more awakened and refined. The sinful act leaves indelible dark spot on the conscience of a relatively more virtuous individual. In other words, the gravity of the sin is considered lesser in the case of an illiterate, ignorant, uncivilized person. With the increase in wisdom, a person acquires a greater capability to discriminate between right and wrong, proper and improper. The conscious becomes aware of the consequences of the proper and improper actions. The voice of conscience therefore becomes more assertive. It becomes more responsible. None blame as infant for dirtying its undergarment, nor does the child feel embarrassed for it. On the other hand, if a grown-up person behaves in such a manner, the society considers it disgraceful and the individual too feel embarrassed and humiliated. With self-evolution, the soul also has to share additional responsibility for higher level of morality and ethics. A soldier with probably will discharge after a minor punishment an account of disobedience, but an officer who have to face court-martial for a similar misconduct. When wise, intelligent and empathetic person indulge in a corrupt practices, Chitragupta records these in the category of grave sin. Mythology tells us that the king Nripa had to face hell for a minor offense. When an ignorant person commits a crime, it is not taken seriously, but if a person made responsible for upholding standards of morality for the masses, like a Brahman, deviates from its course of duty, in the court of divine justice, he and she deserves a stern punishment. A social reformer has a status of a leader in society. Being a leader has its own advantage, but the leader also has the higher responsibility. Knowledgeable persons have the formidable responsibility of adhering to upright conduct and unimpeachable character, following which divine justice will make them suffer the agony of falling from a mountain top to the depth of the valley. In the following chapter, we shall discuss the various types of actions and their relationship with the divine justice. The secret of unexpected good fortune and misfortune. There is a saying in the scriptures that the factors responsible for mental, physical agonies and natural disasters are self-generated. We often come across phenomena which appears quite contradictory to the known laws of nature. creating doubts about the impartiality of divine justice. For instance, an honest, duty conscious, morally superior person is suddenly stuck with a great misfortune in life as through he or she has been punished by the God for a great sin. On the other hand, we find persons engaged in the worst type of corrupt practices living in peace and prosperity. An ideal wins a jackpot or inherits a fortune from unexpected quarters, whereas a hard-working, intelligent person is found suffering endlessly for want of basic necessities. One person achieves great success with little effort, whereas another does not succeed in spite of his best efforts. Such phenomena are properly ascribed to the role of the fate. Similarly, unprecedented natural calamities like famine, epidemics, tornadoes, damage by lightning and earthquakes, and untimely deaths are commonly attributed to the will of God and known as predestinations. Such unexpected happening as financial loss, accidents, sudden mental and physical disability, and physical separation from a dear one is also attributed to fate. Such unexpected adversaries are rare, but they do occur in life. At times, they leave such a deep imprint on the psyche that it is not possible to ignore them. Those who are not familiar with the mysteries of divine justice become very much perplexed by such phenomena and from opinions which is extremely dangerous for life. Many become resentful towards God, blame and abuse Him for an unjust injustice. A few even become aesthetic, considering the futility of worship God who does not respond to prayers in distress despite their prolonged adherence to religiosity. Then there is a class of devotees who serve the saints and the worship deities in expectation of some material gains. However, they are visited with some unfavorable phenomena. Coincidentally, their adoration changes to contempt or disbelief. There are quite a few believers in this world who correlates people, places and things with good and bad luck. Such superstitions have caused extreme miseries to innocent persons. The root cause for such a irrational behavior is the belief that whatever comes to pass is predestined by God and the being created by Him have absolutely no role in shaping their own destiny. Quite a few persons in this world forsake their responsibility in the mistaken belief that the gain and the loss being predestined, there is no necessity of personal effort. They mistakenly believe that they cannot change the will of the God who is supposed to have programmed their life beforehand. We often hear expressions like, whatever is destined cannot be changed, or who can change the fate predestined by God, or it was the will of God. As a matter of fact, man uses such expressions when he finds himself helpless, disturbed, and confused while undergoing adversity. In the absence of understandable cause, the agitated mind finds a scapegoat in the divine will. Nevertheless, such outbursts do have an advantage. They help in releasing the stress of the disturbed mind, which would have otherwise done incalculable harm to the person concerned. There are, however, many mature persons who shrink their responsibility of self-effort to meet a given challenge under a pretext of inextricability of divine will. Because of their influence, the less knowledgeable younger person around them too begin to feel helpless and despaired because of the so-called inevitability of fate. Readers would appreciate how ignorance of a real cause of unexpected calamities creates ridiculous concepts which distort and vitiate the value system of life. Since times immemorial, man has attempted to correlate human activities with events of life over which he has no control. Research in deeper spirituality has discovered ways and means to find answers to such problems of life. In the following section, we shall discuss how mental and physical action of individual and collective activities of the society become responsible for good fortune and misfortune of individual and the community.